Okay, folks. Well, as you may have noticed, I deleted the last video I posted regarding my fried chicken scenario, the epiphany I received with that instance. And I think the reason why I did that is because I think I've decided that I really, and again, I'm still trying to feel this out and still try to understand exactly where I want to go with this because, again, this is very unexpected. This is kind of like a scenario that I never really intended to embark upon. So I'm pretty much doing the best I can. I'm flying by the seat of my pants, and so I'm still trying to figure out exactly where I want to go. So I thought with that last video, I thought maybe communicating my day to day thoughts whilst on this journey of restarting this band that was really a very important part of my life for a very long period of time. I think we actually existed for about I'm gonna say 5, maybe 6 years, and it did go through several incarnations, mainly with our bass players. We always had a hard time finding a very consistent bass player until the end. Nick Chovanik was a very um, consistent player in our band, and he was with us for quite some time. Um, but yeah, there was always a lot of transition with our bass player. Um, so I've decided that moving forward, since this will be essentially a documentation of the recreation of punk guilt, that I want to keep the discussions more musically related. So I'm kind of going to go ahead and just dispense with all of the emotional ephemera that occurs in my day to day life, and just focus on the music. So first things first, who influenced me? Who were my main influences? And this is just myself. I mean, if the other band members at some point wish to discuss their influences musically, they can. But I'm gonna go ahead and just get the ball rolling with my influences. So I suppose my very very first influence, the biggest one on me, would be my father. Uh, since the very beginning, my father always played music in the house. I mean, it was always happening. Every single day, there was music. And that made a lot of sense because later on in my life, I found out that he was actually a musician. And to be quite honest, I do have memories of attending some of their band practices. And to be honest, at the very moment I'm speaking here, I forget the name of their band, but he was the keyboard player. And I remember going to practices every once in a while at this woman's house, and I forget her name. But while we were there, the woman would always give me a bunch of like plastic horses to play with while they practiced down in the basement. And every so often, I would actually sneak down there and witness some of the practice. In fact, I remember I have very kind of like transitory, foggy thoughts of them practicing um, in a little bit of darkness with some lights, very dim lights on. A lot of discussion in between their playing. So that would essentially be my first influence. Is absolutely my father and his love for music, and he introduced me to all the basic uh, normal stuff, such as the band Styx, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, um, uh, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, um, Kiss. Oh, Kiss was a big one. I think my dad was a really huge Kiss fan. I mean, he had a lot of albums, so he must have been a Kiss fan. In fact, later on in my life, when I became a early teenager, I borrowed all those albums and would listen to them endlessly. I mean, I was a huge Kiss fan. In fact, this will transition into another story. And again, I apologize if I'm all over the place here. But it can't be helped, stream of consciousness, dialogue, with the way I'm communicating to you folks. It's inevitable that I, move off onto a tangent, and this will be my first tangent regarding this subject matter. Regarding Kiss, I became a huge fan of theirs, and back when I was very, very young, I had a propensity to embellish upon things and exaggerate, and that was all that was all in my efforts to become accepted as a person. I always felt I was a little, I don't know, a little different than most people, so I always felt like I had to compensate for that with something else that would maybe impress them enough to become my friends. So at a certain point in my life, and actually, I will, yeah, okay. So at a certain point in my life, I amassed all of my father's Kiss albums, and there was one in particular, "Rock and Roll All Over." And one day I decided to forge, and it was a horrible forgery because I didn't even know um, what these band members' signatures actually looked like. But I forged all of their signatures on this album cover. And when my friends would come over, I would bring it out and tell them that I met the band and I had them, sign the album, and I partied with them and I hung out with them backstage and, all this goofy stuff. And yeah, I did that. And actually, I later on in life, when I lived in, I think it was I lived in Mankato, Minnesota. There was this guy that I had met at a barbecue festival, and he looked exactly like Gene Simmons. Um, so of course, always carrying around this guilty conscience in terms of this exaggeration that I made when I was young, and yeah, I carried it with me. I carried this guilty conscience because, ultimately, it's like I lied. I fabricated all these stories to pretend to be a person that I wasn't. So I saw this guy that looked exactly like Gene Simmons, and everyone thought he was Gene Simmons. I mean, people were buying him drinks, women were throwing themselves at him, people were taking pictures with him. It was just a really strange experience, and even I was convinced that this was Gene Simmons. He looked exactly like the guy. I mean, he really did. So I walked up to him and I said, "Hey, Gene, can I talk to you for a moment? Would that be okay?" And of course he said yes. And I confessed to him that day. I confessed that I had forged their signatures on an album for personal gain. And I asked for his forgiveness. I said, "Hey, can you forgive me for that? I was young, I was stupid, I didn't really want to do anything like that." And he did. He forgave me. I didn't ask for any. I didn't ask for a signature at that time, or a photograph, or anything of that nature. I just wanted forgiveness. So he gave me forgiveness, and I went about my day at the festival, and so did he. Amongst throngs of people, though. I mean, he was surrounded by a veritable Kiss army of people. But later on that day, um, I had discovered that he was actually a person who was impersonating Gene Simmons. It wasn't Gene Simmons. In fact, he ended up being escorted out of the festival by the police because not only was he impersonating Gene Simmons, but he was getting people to give him money, buy him drinks, buy him food. So he was essentially using his Gene Simmons likeness for his own personal gain, which is exactly what I did when I forged those signatures on that record album when I was young. And it kind of blew my mind. I just well, yeah. So I guess uh, the takeaway from this is that well, actually, I really don't know what the takeaway is. It's just an interesting thing to have happened to me, and it's kind of funny. But yeah, I would say that to go back to influences. My first influence, again, being my father, his record collection, the music he played every day, the fact that he was in a band, a working band, when I was very young. That would serve as my first main influence. And I think I'm going to go ahead and end the video there. And maybe what I'll do moving forward is with each personal vlog I make regarding punk guilt, I will detail my influences, but I'll try to split them up in a way where I can kind of devote an entire video to each influence and maybe share a story of those influences alongside it. So yeah, let's move forward. Again, if you like what I'm talking about, if you think this is going to be a journey that's worth your time, I mean, I certainly do. It's going to be exciting. There's going to be a lot of things going on. It certainly won't be boring, and you'll get to witness the rebirth of a kick-ass rock and roll band, because that's what we are. We really are a kick-ass rock and roll band. So please join us, join us on this journey. Hit like, hit subscribe, and let's do it together. All right, folks, have a great day.